Hey friends, my name is Ash. My pronouns are she, her, and it is so lovely to be here with you all today. Pastor Kim Pearl and I were talking about what is one of the greatest needs in our areas of ministry. And we agreed that LGBT outreach and education and advocacy is is the greatest area of need for education, for advocacy, for support, and just for practical resources. How do we even begin to love a community that we have proclaimed so much hate against? And so in this upcoming series, I hope that you're able to gain a few things in order to contextualize for your ministry, maybe even just gain a few things for you personally. How can this help you in your area of ministry where you're at right now? So, strap in. First and foremost, I want for you to come at this from a completely non-judgmental approach. And if you're watching this, I sincerely hope that you are. I sincerely hope that you are curious about what life looks like for LGBTQIA plus individuals, particularly within the church. So, just to give you a little bit of background for me, my first career was as a pastor in the Church of the Nazarene, which is a fairly conservative denomination. This was a denomination that I had the typical teenager story. I was kind of lost, a little bit rough around the edges. Youth pastor took me in and my life changed forever. So, I sincerely am so grateful for the Church of the Nazarene. I was so lost then and all the way through until the end of my time with the Church of the Nazarene. But things changed, and that's okay. So I was a Nazarene pastor in my first career. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Ministry and a Master's of Arts in Pastoral Leadership with a focus on multicultural outreach and support and education. I am currently working on a Master's of Arts in Counseling with an emphasis on clinical mental health. I am a chaplain and I work in activity therapy at a psychiatric hospital currently. So everything that I have experienced, I am going to come at things from a very, from an anecdotal approach of my experience. I'll come at things from an empirical approach, research-based, from a clinical approach, mental health, psychological. All right, so my aim with this is not to convert or convince anyone of anything. However, I do want for people to have the facts. I want for people to be educated and to know how to love the LGBTQIA plus community well, okay? There's all kinds of misinformation out there, and that is not your fault. But now that we know better, we do better. Okay? So in this series, we'll be discussing a multitude of topics. The first installment of this will just be the very bare minimum basics. Okay? So, in this first video, I'll give you some statistics of what's going on in the LGBTQIA plus community. I will define the LGBTQIA plus community for you. And then we'll begin to talk a little bit about gender. Okay, I know that's very confusing for so many people. So first and foremost, LGBTQIA+. What is it? L is for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual. And then the plus is all the other sexual orientations not mentioned. So what we just said were sexual orientations, okay? So sexual orientation is how you experience your sexuality in the world, all right? So someone who identifies as a female who is attracted to other women may or may not identify as a lesbian, all right? They may identify as asexual, which means they have no particular sexual attraction. Or they may identify as aromantic, which means they have no particular romantic attraction. All right, there's all kinds of sexual orientations, and I will put resources at the end of this video for you, okay? So you can kind of start to get informed yourself with some solid resources that you can easily research. All right, so what we just talked about was sexual orientation, okay? So a lot of the individuals watching this are probably straight or heterosexual, okay? So that is your sexual orientation, all right? So that's sexual orientation. 2, actually, I'm going to go ahead and go into some statistics really quick, okay? Here is why we do what we do. Here is why it is so important for a heterosexual individual to be educated and to do this in a responsible and loving manner. Okay? First and foremost, my heart goes out to this particular community that's about to be mentioned. This particular community has experienced more violence in the last 2 years than in ever before. This is considered to be domestic violence, so within their homes. Violence on first dates is a very common thing right now. Violence from potential first responders. Violence everywhere within their community, all right? And that is the Black transgender woman. The Black transgender community has experienced more violence in the last 2 years than ever before. All right, so what transgender means is that a person who is born a particular gender, so I'll use me for an example. I was born with female gender, okay? And we need to pause right here. There's so many things we have to define together, I know. But sex and gender, 2 different things, okay? Sex is male, female. Gender, all kinds of other things. All right, so I was born gender female. If I were to be transgender, that means that I would start to transitioning potentially to a male and identify more with the male population, with the masculine population. Potentially I'm non-binary, where I don't particularly identify with men or women or anything, really. It can be all over, or man to woman, man to whatever it is. All right, and the thing about trans, and the thing about all sexual orientation and gender really, is that it is completely and totally fluid. All right, the Gottman Institute, which is like the relationship institute of the world, okay, it's very, very well renowned, and I'll put that at the end of this as well, says that our sexual orientation and our gender is fluid. So for example, if we have a spectrum, all right, if we have a spectrum and maybe straight is on one side and gay or lesbian is on another, and the Gottman Institute says that at times in our life we're going to identify more with one end than the other and vice versa. So, for an example, let's say someone has a significantly traumatic event. Let's say a woman has a significantly traumatic event with a man, okay? For the upcoming future, at least for the immediate in her life, she might not be able to relate to men in an intimate way. And so she's going to relate to one end of the spectrum more than the other. And this is fluid. It can change with seasons of life. It doesn't have to, but it can and often does. Okay? So far we've covered sexual orientation, which is LGBTQIA+, heterosexual, straight, okay? We have covered a little bit of gender, transgender. Another stat I just want to throw out there, and I do want to give a trigger warning for this, for suicide. Another stat that we have to face is the levels of suicide within the LGBTQIA+ community. All right, here are some stats for you. These stats tell such a story. These stats tell about individuals that were yearning to be known, yearning to be loved, yearning to be understood for who they were. And we failed. I want to honor those individuals. anytime we talk about suicide within the LGBTQIA plus community, if you are with a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, I want you to be so conscious of that. It is such a significant thing that permeates our community so dearly. Alright? But this is why we're doing this series. I want for you to be informed so that you can love this community so well. So that you don't make mistakes if you don't have to that set a person off. Alright? So, one final thing we're going to be addressing for this installment, or this part of the video, this video, long day, is pronouns. I know that you have probably started to hear about pronouns, but you have absolutely no idea about what it means or what's going on there. I get it, okay? It is very, very, very confusing. And I'm going to try and put it as simply as I possibly can, okay? So, at the beginning of the video, if you noticed, I introduced myself and said, "Hi, my name is Ash, and my pronouns are she, her." Okay? She, her, hers is my technical pronouns. Alright? So, furthermore, for pronouns, it does not matter how a person presents. Okay? So let's say I were wearing a suit and tie today. I could still, and I had my hair buzz cut, whatever you want to say, I could still walk up to you and say, "Hi, my name is Ash, my pronouns are she, her, hers." Okay? It doesn't matter how a person looks, how you think they look, whether they have breasts or not, whatever it is, a person chooses their pronouns. Okay? Their pronouns are up to them, not up to society standards, not up to you, not up to their parents. They are up to them. Okay? So, one common thing. So let's say you're talking to someone and you know their pronouns. They've already told you, "My pronouns are blank." You're talking to them and you get it wrong. This happens all the time, okay? So let's say someone were talking to me, and there are some days where my pronouns are they, them, theirs, okay? And they were talking to me and they say something like, "Well, her," and then they stop, right? There's that really like, "Oh my goodness, what did I just do?" type of moment. In that moment, you simply need to say, "I'm so sorry," they, correct yourself, and then move on, okay? Don't make a huge deal out of it, but also don't ignore it, okay? It means a lot for a person to be honored for what and who their identity is, okay? So, one way to just bring awareness to pronouns, because it can be kind of awkward to ask someone their pronouns, and to be quite honest, they don't owe that to you. If someone off the street were to come up and ask me, "Hey, what are your pronouns?" It's kind of a really personal question, because I've done a lot of work to be able to know what my pronouns are. And so that's a really personal question. Like, I wouldn't walk up to someone and say, "Hey, what's the really hard work you've been doing in therapy?" No, we don't do that, right? Okay, so one way to bring awareness is just as you introduce yourself, say, "Hi, my name is blank, and my pronouns are," so common ones are she, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, their, she, they, he, they, okay? Those are really common ones. So, "Hi, my name is blank, and my pronouns are blank." So then, if you do that to an LGBT individual, and you just do that, what that tells me is, whoa, this person is aware enough to have done their own work, to seek out the education, to know that pronouns mean a lot. And so then I'm going to feel open to share my pronouns. Other people may not, and that's okay. All right? Again, like we talked about earlier, this can be fluid. So there are some days where I am she, her, hers. Those are my pronouns. And then there are other days where my pronouns are they, them, their. excuse me, they, them, theirs. Okay? So it can be fluid, it can be all over the place, or they can stay the same. A big way, if you send emails at all, is to sign your email with your name and then your pronouns in your parentheses. So my email signature is Ash Mason, and then in parentheses, she/her. All right? Pretty easy, pretty simple. And again, if you mess up, it's okay. Just acknowledge it quickly, correct yourself, and move on. All right, y'all, I've thrown a lot at you for this video, but I know that if you're watching this, you have an amazing, amazing heart to be able to know better and do better. You can know people in such an intimate way. Next video, I'm telling you, we're going to be debunking a few things about the LGBT community, and I think it'll be really helpful for everyone who is curious. All right? Thank you so much. I appreciate it.